this afternoon. I'm Ambrose Moses with Central State University Extension, the Cooperative Extension Service, and the Community and Economic Development Unit with the university. And today we're here for our weekly program of CED Office Hour Live. And our session today, this month, October, we're going to deal with discuss the various professional relationships that are important for small business owners in general, to have. And so each week we're going to have someone speak, one of the experts to come and speak on the various relationships. And in particular, we're going to look at the legal, the accounting, the insurance, and the banking relationships. Obviously, there are a few more. You may have business consultants and things of that nature. But those are some of the core professional relationships that business owners need to have and are very beneficial to them in the growth and the development of their business enterprises. And so this week we're going to talk about the legal relationship, the business owner and their attorney. So our topic, the business owner's dream team, and today's topic, what is your lawyer's role in your business? Now, with Central State University Cooperative Extension, my role is I serve as an extension educator. But outside of working with and for the university, I also have many years of experience as a lawyer in terms of providing service to individuals and organizations and companies in a wide range of matters. And currently, I focus in the areas of business, nonprofits, and estate planning. And so in terms of some of the issues or things to be considered in forming and maintaining those relationships, I think I have a little bit of experience in that and would be willing to, looking forward to sharing some of that this afternoon. Now, the way I like to sum it up, when we talk about what is the role of the lawyer in your business, I think the lawyer's role really falls into three areas. And when you look at everything that they do, typically it's going to fall under one of these categories. The lawyer will advise, counsel, or represent the client. So anything that the lawyer does will fall typically within one of those categories. And I think it's important to consider that, to understand that as the business owner, because it can then provide more information to you as to what the value is of having a lawyer. Why you want to consider engaging counsel or going through that process, or even what kind of a lawyer to engage to assist you. So let's take a look at each of these areas: the advise, counsel, and represent. When we talk about advise, there typically are a few steps that the lawyer will go through. So the lawyer will initially consult with the client. That can be by telephone, by some online interaction via Zoom or something to that effect, or traditionally, face-to-face meetings. So there will be a consultation between the attorney and the client. And then the lawyer, as part of that, will evaluate the client's situation, find out, what the client is saying, what the client thinks happened or reports what happened, and just get a feel for what's actually happening. After that, the next step would be for the attorney to investigate the facts of that matter. To go and fact find, take the leads or the information that was provided by the client and to further develop that, ask more questions, request documents, things that identify witnesses or other individuals who know about what's going on, things to that effect. And this applies whether it is a some kind of court-related matter, or even if you're looking at a contract or negotiating or resolving some interaction with a customer or another company. So which is why we use the phrase matter instead of just saying a case. So lawyers are helpful in a wide range of situations. So after investigating the facts, the lawyer will then research the applicable law. Understanding the facts tells them, what has happened. So now, what law applies to that set of facts? And it may be one approach, it may be multiple approaches, but those facts, as they are understood, will help guide what research the lawyer does that will then apply to that. So after doing the research, then as we state here, the lawyer would apply those facts to that particular matter. And in applying that, the lawyer will predict or inform the client, how something is likely to turn out, or what restrictions the law clearly imposes, what options the law may allow the client or someone else to do, what the gray areas are, because many times things are not um, uh, sort of black and white or set in stone. There's sort of some gray area in terms of if there's a dispute on that particular issue, it would be interpreted by a judge or by a hearing officer or by an administrative agency. And the way that whatever that situation is gets interpreted could vary based upon who is actually hearing that dispute. So what the client would need to know, which is step 5 here, is for the attorney to then advise the client as to what his or her options are based upon those facts as they are known to the lawyer, and based upon the applicable law that he or she was able to find to research. And then that would give the client options to choose from and to make a decision in terms of how they would want to approach the particular matter. Now, it may be that some courses of action the client wants to take or is thinking or considering taking may actually be unlawful, or it may subject the client to some tremendous risk. In those situations, the attorney may, in terms of advising, may actually recommend and strongly recommends that you have to take course of action A or course of action B because of the risk. So in those kinds of situations, the attorney may actually sort of push strongly for one course of action versus another. But typically, it is the client's role, the client's responsibility to make that decision for themselves after being fully informed. So that is where the attorney is advising the client. Now, when we look at the role of counsel, in that situation, it may start in a similar fashion where the lawyer will consult with the client and to evaluate whatever the circumstances are that the client is bringing forth. Many times this may happen in a business setting where the client brings in the lawyer for counsel and says, we are looking to make a decision, whether to enter into a contract with this other company or whether to take a certain strategic course of action. And so the attorney is there in the meeting as part of the team, with some of the other leadership or executives of the company, some of the other professionals, maybe someone from accounting or someone from marketing, as they are discussing these decisions that they're looking to do. So that's where step 2 is, where the attorney would participate and maybe sort of guide some of the discussion and the evaluation of the matter. If necessary, the client may, the attorney may need to go again and do some research that's applicable to that circumstance that the group was discussing. And then finally, the attorney plays the role of assisting the client in arriving at and then articulating their decision on that matter. So in this situation as counseling, the attorney is not advising. It's not he or she is not dictating what those options and course of action are. It's really helping the client to arrive at whatever decision they want to make, or that the business owners think are in their better interest there. So it's similar, but it's a little different than the advising. And then the final approach when we talk final role when we talk about the advising, counseling, and representing is the representation, which is really more of the sort of traditional role that we see, the role that is often sort of glorified on television and in the news and that kind of thing. And it starts again pretty much the same. The lawyer is going to consult with the client and evaluate the situation. There will be an investigation of the facts, research of the applicable law, and then apply the law to those that particular matter. Then, after advising the client as to the options, so that's similar to the advising. So after going through that process, then the lawyer will stand in the place of the client in front of whatever the other body may be it an administrative agency such as the Internal Revenue Service, or the Securities and Exchange Commission, or maybe even Jobs and Family Services, or any kind of administrative proceeding. Or it could be court hearings. There may be a trial, there may be a hearing on a motion, something of that nature that occurs at the courthouse in one of the courtrooms. Then also representation would include the standing in the place of the client in terms of negotiations. There may be negotiations between companies, negotiating a lease agreement or a contract, and you would have lawyers from both sides there in those negotiations on behalf of their client. So the communications are going back and forth through those attorneys as they determine and talk about what the language should be, or what the courses of action should be that they are negotiating. And there may be other appearances, even in the context of things such as public relations. Sometimes individuals are in or sort of thrust into a public spotlight, and one of the things they do is go and secure legal counsel to represent them to the public, so that this individual, this lawyer, would field questions or any kind of inquiries from the public, the media, concerning whatever the matter may be, and then speak on behalf of that individual or that family. Okay. So are there any questions in terms of the advise, counsel, and represent at this point? And feel free to unmute your mic if you have any questions, because I can't really see if there's hands raised at this point. All right. So we'll keep going here. So one of the things to look at, one of the questions that comes up then is where do you find a lawyer? What is that process, or how do you identify a lawyer? And typically, it's going to be through various referrals. Now that's one of the first steps that people. One of the first ways that people engage with or learn about different lawyers. So there may be referrals from friends or family members who have been in a similar situation, or who may have heard of someone else who has engaged legal counsel to address the type of matter that the client is bringing forth. So when we talk about friends and family members, and we look at a business setting, business context, then it may be some of your business associates. Their companies, their companies may have engaged or heard about engage in a certain lawyer to represent or assist in negotiating a lease agreement or addressing a certain notice that your company received from the state of Ohio or from any other agency. So these referrals can be important. One of the things to do is to um, um, interview and vet whatever lawyer you are referred to. As you go through this process, make an appointment, sit down and talk, or call on the telephone and talk about what your matter is and how the lawyer will look to handle it, what will be their cost, and things of that nature. You could also have referrals from other trusted advisors, professional advisors. So if you have an accountant, your accountant may have some lawyers that he or she can refer you to assist with certain legal matters as well. They may be knowledgeable of that because of some of the other interactions that they've had. A local bar association, and this would be at the city level, at the state level. The state bar association typically has um, a lawyer referral service as well. So through the bar association, you would contact the referral service, and they would ask you some questions in terms of what kind of legal matter you have, and they maintain a list of different lawyers who can are possibly open to take that kind of case. So they'll give you the contact information, and you will be able to then call, make contact with the offices of these particular lawyers, and then to interview them for possibly assisting you. And then finally, there are many online directories that you may be able to access as well that would have listings of attorneys in different practice areas that could be helpful to you in identifying some lawyers to interview. All right. So as we talk about the advise, counsel, and represent, if we look at sort of a little more context of the role that the lawyer plays or helps clients with, the lawyer may, in a business setting, help the client to evaluate business ideas, and that goes along the line in terms of the counseling that we talked about. So the business owner may sit down with the lawyer and talk over what their strategies, what their thoughts are, and the attorney would sort of ask them questions, maybe suggest a couple of things. Suggest some things that may need to be looked into a little further, things of that nature. So that is a good thing to do if someone is going into a new business, going into a new area of business that may pose some unforeseen risk. So there may be some things that the attorney would look at that the client just didn't think about initially. So that would be a reason for engaging a lawyer, at that stage as well. And as we continue to go through here, through our discussion here this afternoon, I think that it's important to look at the fact that we say engaging a lawyer, but really you do want to, a business owner does want to have a relationship with their lawyer to build some rapport and to have a professional advisor, a lawyer that they can rely upon and get that guidance and assistance from fairly easily for their business. And it may be that as your business grows, that you have your primary lawyer that you go to, but if your lawyer does general business, per se, let's say, and you have a patent matter, so you have some intellectual property and there's a patent issue, then it may require a lawyer who's a specialist in doing patent work, or there may be some other type of technical legal area that your company needs some assistance in that situation, then you would be able to work with your primary legal counsel to identify this specialist that you would utilize for that particular matter. So you still have your primary lawyer, but you bring in the specialist to help on whatever that situation may be. Much like in a medical situation where you have your primary doctor, and then the doctor, refers you to or helps you to locate a specialist for different conditions that you might experience. So those are some of the things that the lawyer can help with, as well as deciding the correct business entity. Whether it's going to be a corporation, an LLC, a nonprofit, or a partnership, or some of the other nuances. When we have folks who talk about doing cooperatives or doing benefit corporations, things of that nature are helpful to engage and seek the advice of legal counsel as you consider those, so that you can understand more what the matter involves and what your options are in that situation. So you also want to look at engaging or interacting with legal counsel as you, for your business, as you look to formalize the relationships with business partners and investors. That's going to be very important because many times when we talk about business partners and investors, you're talking about financial transactions, and some of those transactions may be regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission at the federal level, or the state division of securities at the state level. And in terms of the risk, the exposure, the requirements that must be met to comply with those laws, many times it is very, very helpful to have legal counsel to go through that. And when we talk about formalizing the relationships with those business partners, those are steps that would occur even before actually going to or making reports to the applicable state or federal agencies. So that's why, in terms of formalizing a relationship, that's why we talk about it in that manner, because early on, when you start, talking with someone, hey, I have this business. Do you want to partner? Do you want to invest? Some of that you might be able to do prior to legal counsel, but even there may be some specific ways, disclosures that need to be made as you do some of those communications even. So when you're talking about having relationships with business partners and investors, it is very helpful and important to speak with legal counsel. In terms of protecting intellectual property, and when we talk about intellectual property, we're talking about copyright, trademarks, service marks, or trade secrets, which are those things, protections under the law for sort of the creative work that people do. If you write a poem, if you write a song, or if you compose music, or maybe you have choreographed a dance, or recorded a video, or directed a movie, these are some things that can be protected under the law by certain federal and state provisions for copyright, trademark, and the like. So it's because of the value that comes with that, and the requirement that in order to enforce those rights, to make them more valuable, that certain steps, administrative steps, need to be taken. It's important and helpful to have legal counsel to guide and to make one aware of what those options are. There may be some protections that are provided under what we call the common law, the law that applies even before you look at your statutes and things of that nature. But there are steps that may be required to make your rights fully enforceable and protectable. So intellectual property is one of those. And once you're able to establish the intellectual property, it may increase the value of your business and increase the ability and likelihood of being able to bring in investors or being able to bring in other capital or being able to monetize certain aspects of your business in terms of the things that you're selling because you have secured your right in that. So intellectual property is one of those important areas. And as we mentioned earlier about reviewing and negotiating contracts and lease agreements, where the lawyer sort of stands in the place of the client in those interactions with the other party or with the other party's lawyer. So so basically, if we were to sum it up, your lawyer helps you to make informed personal and business decisions. So that's part of the real crux of having the lawyer who provides either advise, counsel, or represent services to the client. Now, if we were to uh, look at this a little bit further in the business context, you have your entrepreneurs, you have folks who have their skills, their talents, their abilities. They're creative. They have something to share with the world. They have something that can be monetized. Creating the things that we all like to go out and visit, all like to go out and shop and buy and things of that nature. The sort of the spice to life kind of thing. They're an entrepreneur, and they're setting up shop. They're just doing what entrepreneurs do. Sometimes you have folks who just, they have their creative urge to sell, and they know how to build or do what they do. They know how to sell it, and they just go out and start doing it. In those situations, as we've mentioned in some of our other workshops, that individual may be what's called a sole proprietorship. So their business may be going well. They have customers, they have a lot of sales going on, their cash flow, all those things are going strong. But their sole proprietorship, which means then, as part of what we teach in some of our other class workshops here at Central State, they are fully exposed to the liability of that business. So there's no protection there. So there may be issues that arise as a result of that. And some of the consequences can be very dire for their business. So that's a circumstance where you're probably going to want to have a lawyer, and it can lead to what we call sort of some crossroads here, because things happen. As your business grows, you experience more success. There are various things, circumstances that arise, and so you have to make decisions and decide, how you're going to address these circumstances. It could be the formation, going from your sole proprietorship into an LLC or into a corporation or whatever business structure that you should go into or may decide you want to go into. Or maybe there's been a dip in the business activity, business sales, and it's been difficult to make some of the payments. Maybe there was a pandemic that hit that interrupted the flow of business, and so now you might be receiving eviction notices or having other cash flow related type issues. In some of those situations, then along with talking with your financial advisor, be it your accountant or CPA, the treasurer of your company, you may also want to sit down and talk with your lawyer as well. In talking with the lawyer, there can be some additional information that's provided, additional information in terms of what your options might be that can help you as you make those informed decisions. And so sometimes all you need is that consultation or that interaction, that guidance to sort of settle your mind, to let you know what the options are, and then sort of enable you to now make a decision and go forward. Many times the hardest part of facing these challenges is not knowing what your options are, not knowing what you can or cannot do, or just what those options are. Um, there might be three different approaches to a matter. You talk to uh, three people, and they each may select one of those options. It's not as if one option is going to be required of all individuals. So um, it's important to know and helpful to you to know what those options are, and then you can make your own decision for your particular business and your particular circumstances. So there are disputes that happen. So even if you sort of exercise best practices, you try to get things down in writing, even with your business partner, someone that you may have been friends with or been on good terms with before the business. You get things down in writing. Things can happen. Disputes will happen between individuals. So if you had it in the contract, you had it down in writing, and this dispute still comes up, things can still, even as a business, can still end up in court. Okay. So where the parties are not able to come to a resolution and someone files a lawsuit. So now the matter is in court, and there may be a requirement, depending upon how your business is structured, depending upon who the parties are. It may be even required in that circumstance that the company have a lawyer to, as we mentioned before, to represent them in court. So there are specific rules that may even come into play that require a company to have a legal representative, to have a lawyer as their representative. Um, Individuals always have the right to represent themselves, but when we talk about a business, be it a corporation, be it an LLC or limited liability company, they are recognized as a person under the law, as we've mentioned in some of our other classes, but they don't have a physical body. Someone would have to stand in place for them in court. And under our law, in Ohio, that would need to be typically would need to be a lawyer, a licensed lawyer, to stand in their place to represent them. Um, so that's sort of some of the things that lawyers do, the roles that they play within the context of a business. Um, in terms of the relationship, or in terms of why people do why they lawyer, why they engage in this. Lawyers like to typically like to serve people, to help. They like to obviously, like everyone likes to have happy clients. It's not always possible, but hey, people like to do that. They typically are individuals who like to help their clients to who have great ideas, to help them achieve those ideas, to play a part in that process of developing this idea that the client has, helping them to navigate the sort of the pitfalls, the challenges, even the good times that come along with that business development. Um, in addition, in terms of implementing some of the ideas that individuals have, the lawyers, they engage with the other professionals, be it the accountant, be it the insurance representatives or bankers. All of these are different relationships, different transactions, different interactions, where there is typically some aspect of law that goes along with it. And I think that it is helpful to know that the role of the lawyer is different than any of the other professionals that you have. They're all important, but one thing to keep in mind is that the lawyer is there with the client, if they're fully utilized, is there with the client even when it comes to each of these other engagements. Because typically, between the client and, let's say, the accountant, or the client and the insurance agent, there's typically a contractual type relationship involved there. And so when the business is engaging in contractual interactions, that will be an area where the lawyer should have some interplay as well, in terms of being able to know what the transaction is, and to provide some advice or provide some counsel to the client as they enter into those relationships. So those are things that you want to have legal counsel involved in, even if it's typically sort of routine. Um, Sometimes what is viewed as routine may not be routine. There may have been some changes that have taken place that was added to the language, or there may be some other circumstances that mean that require the routine to be changed to accommodate these other changes. So um, and that's the role of the lawyer, to be involved in each of those types of circumstances. So I think that's sort of an important aspect of the attorney-client relationship for business owners to know about, to think about as they look to address that need within their business, the need for that legal professional. All right, so I would like to go ahead and open things up for a little Q&A. Let me stop sharing my screen here. Find. Oh, it looks like, okay. Is it true here that my screen was not shared that whole time?
Oh, well, I guess I didn't realize. Were you working off of a PowerPoint?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. If,
So,
if your plan was for them to see a PowerPoint, that was not the case. But we can always
okay.
follow up with the PowerPoint.
Okay. Yes, I will do that. I will send that out. So you all did not see all my nice slides and everything as I was going through. Okay, I apologize for that. For some reason, my setup here, I couldn't see the screen. I started the PowerPoint and it just covered everything there, and I couldn't see anything else on the screen. So I do apologize for that. Um, so are there any questions, any thoughts concerning the professional relationships or the relationship between the business and their legal counsel?
Ambrose, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
This is Victor Williams. How are you this afternoon?
Oh, doing well, doing well. How are you, Vic?
Good to see you. Good to see you. With or without the presentation slideshow, it all went off well. So rest assured, the message got through. You know, when we start talking about legal issues, it's always one of those situations of being proactive versus reactive. But whenever you get to a point where you need an attorney, it's usually because you are in hot water. So, and that's a reactive position versus a proactive. But on the proactive side, my question goes to NDAs. And especially when you begin, in my case, when you begin to look for funding sources in the private sector, and you're sending out your intellectual property proposals or in-depth information on your programming. My question is how do you protect yourself as a best practice? How do you protect yourself to ensure that the information you're sending out isn't absorbed and then picked apart and someone else is using your concepts to further their own interests. What is best practice when sending documentation out there? Is there a label that you put on it to say confidential or something to that point? And secondly, if you don't send your full packet out and you send out a teaser to the private sector for funding, is it best practice that they would respond back asking for more information, and at that time is when you get into NDAs, or is NDAs a kind of is that a slippery slope to start talking legal jargon when you're out there trying to get funding? So it's a kind of convoluted question, but hopefully I touched on all the areas.
Okay. So this is an educational format here. So I'm going to take that as an educational question and not provide any legal advice for your particular circumstance.
Right.
So the NDA refers to a non-disclosure agreement, which would be where a company wants to share some information with another company or another individual, and they want, pardon? And they want the other individual to not share or not show that information to anyone else. So that's hence the non-disclosure agreement. And if they were to do that, if the other individual was to share it after signing the non-disclosure, then it could open them up to potential litigation and liability for breaching that non-disclosure agreement. One of the things that goes to when we talked about in the presentation about intellectual property. So that's one of the areas where when you're talking about being proactive and you're talking about the advice, you talk about the counsel, sitting down with your attorney as well to evaluate what it is you're trying to protect. And if there are some approaches, legal approaches to protect that, let's say if it's a certain formula or business methodology that you are looking to share and get some other supporters or funders in, then that may be something that could be protected by patent. And so in that circumstance, there may be something that the attorney would recommend that you pursue or initiate the patent process so that you can have patent pending status at the very least when you go out to communicate and seek investments or interactions with others. And in that circumstance, you have put on the record this intellectual property that the company owns or is asserting a right into. But then in some situations, even if after that, there is still some risk. So you still have to evaluate who you're sharing the information with, even if they're going to sign an NDA. Is it worth the risk that they may violate the NDA, or is it worth the risk that they may take your idea? They may steal and utilize your idea without engaging you or your company. So there is always that risk involved, especially if they have more resources. So you do want to, I think, have an approach where you work with legal counsel and protect as much of your work, your invention, your creation, your business method, whatever it may be. Try to protect it as solidly as possible before sharing it with others.
Looking great. I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Are there any other questions or thoughts concerning the role or engaging with legal counsel for your business?
So, Ambrose, this is Eric. I guess I'm wondering. Let's say I'm a small startup. I've got I've got basically maybe I'm doing like a hoop house in the back of my in my backyard. I'm selling tomatoes to a local restaurant. That's that's the space I'm in. I guess I'm wondering, if I'm that small of a startup, do what should I be budgeting as I'm thinking about my business? What should I be budgeting for interactions with legal counsel, and how often should I be thinking about interacting with legal counsel?
I think that in that circumstance where you have this, the farmer, the property owner, um, in the circumstance that you're talking about, they're doing the farming there, possibly at their home. You said they have a hoop house, so maybe they're doing it on the property that they live in, where they live. So they may need to look at, are there any zoning requirements? Is all of that in order? Then if they are transporting food to one of the local markets, then you got to look at, is there some risk involved in this business operation, of growing this food and then transporting it to the shop or the store where it's going to be sold. So in that circumstance, it would be good to sit down with counsel. I would say this is where having a relationship with counsel comes into play, where you may be able to, if you find a good business lawyer, good general business lawyer, they may be able to charge a small monthly retainer. It might be $50 or $100, or some amount that would give this small business owner, agribusiness owner, access to legal counsel to ask those questions, or to send an email and get a reply to a question that they may have. I think that there are options out there, and you're going to want to search around for a lawyer, who can address the needs, or design the services to fit the needs of your particular business. Given that it's small and that it's looking to grow, or maybe just looking to stay small in scale, but still needing to have that protection. So I would say it's something to shop around for, and to explore what those legal representation options are.
Great, thank you. If I can ask a follow-up question, so you're talking about shopping around, and you talk about some of the places you go to find, a lawyer, such as the Bar Association. Yeah. So, any additional thoughts on how I could vet, make sure that this is the right person for me to work with?
I think that in this regard, what I have found over the years, is that, I mean, lawyers come in all shapes, everything. And there is a lawyer that matches your personality. And so I think you do want to interview a few of them. I mean, and so the different sources, the referrals, the online searches, the Bar Association. I mean, there are a lot of different sources to get some names, and you're going to want to talk with them. And I think that when you look at, what feeling do you get when you meet and engage with this individual? If when you ask a question, when they answer the question, do they talk over your head? Do they talk in a way that you don't understand what they're saying? I think that would be a bad circumstance to be in. I think you're going to want someone who can break things down, to the level, or in a format that you can understand what they are telling you, because ultimately you're going to have to make the final decision. Once the attorney communicates what the options are, then you as the business owner has to make the decision. And if you don't understand what the lawyer is telling you, then you're not informed. So I think that being able to find someone that you feel comfortable with, that is knowledgeable, and that you feel comfortable even asking questions. Because sometimes there are individuals who they tell you something and they expect that you should just take their word as as this is how it is, and they don't want you to, or they don't seem to be receptive to you questioning or asking them to explain or even maybe even challenge what they've told you. Not that you want to go in and arguing, with your lawyer, but you want to be able to have that kind of interaction. So I do think it's a really personal type thing to do in terms of engaging effective and helpful counsel. I hope I didn't ramble too much with that, but I think that relationship part is a very key aspect of it.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, again, we are coming to the end of our time. We only have a few more minutes here, but again, this month we are focusing on the professional relationships. Next week we're going to have accounting. We're going to have a CPA in to talk with us about the accounting relationship that the business has and should have. All right, and then we'll have again insurance and banking in the final 2 weeks of the month. So I do want to thank you all for signing in and sharing some time with us here today. And I look forward to engaging with you and sharing some information next Thursday for CED Office Hour Live.
Thank you.
Thank you.